Welcome back to Top 5.
In the small, quiet town of Eldridge Hollow, the Hargrove family was searching for solace. The steep streets were lined with gnarled trees and time-worn houses, most of which harbored the whispers of the past. The recent move was meant to breathe life back into their family, which had been crushed by grief. In the wake of their son Joshua's tragic death 2 years ago, Sarah and Mark Hargrove struggled to reconnect. The pain had frayed their bonds, leaving jagged edges in its wake. Their 8-year-old daughter, Emma, with her bright green eyes and golden curls, was the only glimmer of joy in their lives. She had always been an imaginative child, but in recent months, her fantasies began to take root in unsettling ways. Shortly after they moved into the ramshackle Victorian house on Oak Street, Emma announced that she had an invisible pet named Luna. "Luna is special," Emma exclaimed one evening during dinner, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "She's a very quiet little fox, but I think she's got magic." A soft chuckle escaped Mark's lips, a momentary distraction from the sorrow cloaking their hearts. Sarah feigned a smile, placing her hand over Emma's. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. What does Luna do?" "I play with her in the backyard. She likes it when I talk to her. She's helped me find all my lost toys," Emma said, her small hands dancing animatedly as she demonstrated her excitement. At first, Sarah felt relieved that her daughter had found a semblance of happiness in an imaginary friend. But as days turned into weeks, she began to notice that the imaginary friend was taking on a darker tone. Emma's laughter sometimes turned into shrill giggles that made her heart race. One rainy afternoon, Sarah found Emma huddled in the corner of her room, talking softly to the air. A prickly sensation settled along Sarah's spine as she approached her daughter. "Emma, sweetie, what are you doing?" she asked, forcing herself to maintain a calm tone. Emma's head whipped around, and her eyes shone with fervor. "I'm reading Luna's mind. She says we should talk to the lost things." "What do you mean by lost things?" Sarah leaned in, worried. Emma's gaze drifted back to her corner as if Luna were sitting beside her. "Things that don't belong to anyone anymore, Mom," she said earnestly. "They want to play too. Luna says it's okay." This peculiar fixation filled Sarah with unease, but she tucked it away, attributing it to the adjustments their family was making. Perhaps it was just a coping mechanism, a way for Emma to navigate her tumultuous feelings since they lost Joshua. However, as days wore on, Sarah and Mark could not ignore the unsettling atmosphere enveloping their home. One night, Mark heard whispers coming from Emma's room. He glanced at Sarah, his brow furrowing with concern. They stepped quietly down the hall, their feet padding softly against the floorboards. Peering through Emma's half-open door, they witnessed a frightening spectacle. Emma sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by an assortment of toys that seemed to have gathered on their own. Her hair floated around her face as if blown by a gentle breeze, and her little fingers curled around an imaginary leash. After a moment, she began to chant in a sing-song voice, calling out to Luna as if she were addressing a crowd. "Luna says they're here to play." Mark swallowed hard, and his heart sank. "What is she talking about?" he whispered to Sarah. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "We should go in." Emma seems confused. Just then, dark silhouettes flitted in and out of the shadows surrounding the girl. Figures no larger than smoke slipped through the walls, ethereal and indescribable. The air grew thick with a muffled sense of dread, and Emma's laughter echoed unnaturally, sending chills down their spines. "Emma! Come here!" Mark called out, stepping forward into her room. But as soon as his voice broke the spell, the dark figures recoiled, and a cold wind howled through the room, knocking the door wide open. "Dad!" "No!" Emma cried, shoving her hands forward, but it was too late. The shadows surged, clawing at Mark, pulling him backward as he struggled to break free. "Help!" Mark shouted, his voice laced with terror. Panic gripped Sarah, who dashed inside the room and grabbed Emma's wrist. "Let's go, Emma. Now." Luna's shadow shifted violently, and the laughter that erupted was twisted and mocking, echoing with scorn. The figures once again encroached, forming a ring around them, their movements pulsating with a primal hunger. "Help! Let him go!" Emma screamed in a voice that transcended her age, filled with desperation. Time fell away as darkness threatened to consume them, creeping closer and closer like a predator waiting for its prey. But then, in a flare of defiance, Sarah raised her voice, stealing her resolve. "Emma, we love you. You're not alone." In an instant, the darkness froze. The figures quivered as if caught in the light of Sarah's words. "We're here for you. Don't listen to them." The shadows around them ebbed and pulsed. The dark laughter turned into a sharp screeching, reverberating through the very fabric of the room. It was a sound that splintered Sarah's heart, an echo of lost souls desperately clawing for connection. "Leave us alone," Emma cried, her voice steadying, now intertwined with her parents' love. "I don't want to play." As the shadows writhed and swayed, they started to panic, diminishing like smoke in the wind. The warmth began to seep back into the atmosphere, and the incubus of darkness recoiled further, unwilling to release its grip yet unable to withstand the power of love. With one final scream, the shadows exploded, dissipating into the corners of the room, leaving the Hargroves breathless and staring wide-eyed at the aftermath of their frantic struggle. Emma fell to her knees, sobbing, and Sarah knelt beside her, gathering the child in her arms. "You're okay, honey. You're safe now." "What was that?" Emma sobbed. "What was Luna?" "We're not sure, sweetie. But we need to talk about her," Mark said, still shaken. In the following days, Sarah and Mark found it difficult to return to normalcy. They dealt with the aftermath of that terrifying night, always with a sense of vigilance lurking in their minds. They did their best to provide Emma with comfort, yet trepidation still loomed over their home like an unwelcome guest. Mark suggested they find a real pet for Emma, someone tangible to fill the void in her heart. What if it makes things worse? Sarah worried aloud. What if Luna still wishes to stay? However, the decision was ultimately made for them when the family visited a shelter a few weeks later. Emma connected with a little golden retriever puppy named Sunny, bright-eyed and exuberant, and soon the Hargrove home overflowed with the infectious joy of a loving pet. The initial enthusiasm of Sunny's arrival helped ease the tension. Emma finally seemed to push Luna aside, focusing on her new companion. Laughter filled the halls as Sunny chased after her in the backyard, and the shadows, now nothing more than a distant memory, began to recede from their minds. Yet, lingering in the corners of the darkened house, echoes of uncertainty remained. Emma's laughter rang through the rooms during the day, but she often returned to a reflective silence at night. It became a ritual to tuck her in, read a story, and wish her good night, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something still lurked in the darkness when the lights dimmed. One night, as Sarah stood watching over Emma while she slept, she noticed the child's brow furrowing and her lips moving effortlessly. A creeping shadow fell across the room, stirring when the moonlight flickered through the curtains. "Luna?" Emma murmured sleepily. The breath caught in Sarah's throat, forcing her to hold her breath. "Emma? Sweetie?" But Emma remained lost in a dream, her face twisting between expressions of fear and longing. It was a soundless conversation, but her small frame shifted uncomfortably, clutching the edges of her blanket while Sunny slept peacefully at her feet. "Luna, I don't want to anymore," Emma muttered softly. "You're not my friend. You hurt Dad." Sarah felt icy dread creep back into her heart, as if staring into the depths of something powerful and dark. The light from the moon illuminated a specter hanging just at the edge of her perception, a whisper of darkness that seemed to curve around her child. "No more," Emma cried, her voice sharper, and suddenly the shadows within the room shivered, twisting and swirling, as if they were alive, their presence thickening the air. "Emma!" Sarah broke, stepping forward, her heart pounding furiously within her chest. No sooner had she yelled Emma's name than an unnatural chill filled the room, and a palpable weight bore down upon them, forcing Sarah to her knees as shadows pooled and twisted like vines around her. "Stay away from her!" Mark yelled, tearing through the door, his eyes wild with fear. He grabbed Emma's arm, pulling her back and holding her against him. "Luna! Stop!" Emma shouted, gripping her father tightly, tears falling down her cheeks. "Leave us alone! You're not my friend!" As though her fierce declaration acted as a barrier, the shadows hesitated, flickering violently before retracting as if struck. The force of their retreat jolted everyone, leaving the air electric and taut. "Where are you? Come out!" Emma shouted again, her voice suddenly filled with ferocity. Staring into the darkness, Sarah's heart lurched. "Emma, you don't have to be brave," she urged. "It's okay. You're safe here." Mark held his daughter tightly, but her gaze was locked onto the swirling mists, her expression one of fierce determination. The shadows pulsed around them, now tightening and pulling with an insatiable hunger, almost as if they were responding to her fear. But then, the dark mass began to writhe, shifting from tendrils of smoke into something more familiar. A shape began to form, a grotesque echo of the little fox Emma had once described so vividly. "Luna, I said to stop!" Emma cried. The entity materialized as a shadowy version of her imaginary pet, its eyes aglow like bright red coals, unblinking and hollow. Its grin stretched wider, revealing jagged teeth, too sharp, dripping with an unnameable intent. In that moment, Mark and Sarah pulled Emma closer, bracing against the encroaching tide. As light flickered from their hearts, it illuminated the dark form hovering before them. "I won't let you take her!" Mark shouted, despite the terror clawing at the edges of his sanity. "This ends now!" Sarah drew upon her own courage, feeling the warmth of her love for her family glowing like a trembling flame. "You don't belong here," she screamed, standing her ground against the malicious energy. "You cannot keep returning. You're just an echo of her grief." The entity hesitated, its lips twisting, but it did not retreat. Instead, it surged forward, seeking to swallow them whole. "No!" Emma yelled, breaking free from her father's grasp. She stepped toward the creature, her small body radiating resolve. "I am done being scared. I won't let you hurt my family." From within, a surge of light broke free, a warmth radiated from Emma, brighter than any candle in the darkness. It glimmered with absolute, unconditional love, wrapping around the shadows like threads of brightness, constricting their wicked tendrils. "What's happening?" Mark gasped, feeling the warmth push against the coldness surrounding them. "In order to defeat you," Emma shouted, her voice steady, "I have to accept who you really are. Why you were born from my sadness, and you will not control me anymore." At that declaration, the shadows shrieked, losing their shape, conflicting against the light that Emma radiated. With each word from the child's mouth, the figure uncoiled, dissolving into flickering wisps, scattering softly into the corners of the room. The air shimmered with the energy of Emma's newfound resilience, bursting forth like a supernova. Mark and Sarah gasped as they witnessed their little girl stand defiant before a force that had tormented their family for too long. "I am not afraid. I choose my family," she cried. In an explosive burst of light, the shadows vanished, reduced to nothing more than whispers against the wall, dissipating into thin, empty air. It was as if the very fabric of reality had bent to Emma's will, and with a final shriek, Luna's shadow melted away entirely. The room fell silent, save for the sound of their collective breaths, heavy with disbelief. Emma collapsed into her father's arms, shaking but triumphant, the adrenaline ebbing from her small frame. Mark and Sarah held her tightly, their hearts swelling with relief. "You did it, Emma," Mark whispered, tears streaming down his face. "You were so brave. You saved us." "I'm okay," Emma mumbled, surrounded by their warmth. As dawn broke and light streamed through the window, casting warmth against the walls, the shadows of the past faded. The oppressive weight they had carried felt lighter, and the haunting echoes seemed but distant memories. That morning marked a new beginning for the Hargrove family. They could finally breathe deeply, setting their burdens down for the first time in years. Emma returned to her vibrant laughter, and as they enjoyed breakfast with Sunny bounding eagerly around them, the shadows departed from Eldritch Hollow, leaving only light and warmth behind. They began to explore their new life. In a bid to reconnect, Sarah and Mark took Emma to various parks and museums, encouraging her creativity. They fostered an environment bursting with love, all while keeping the promise to be with their daughter, no matter what. Emma attended dance classes and art lessons, her imaginative spark blooming brighter than ever. But occasionally, in the deep of the night, they would sense subtle echoes. They'd hear whispered voices carried on the wind, or perhaps it was just the shift of leaves outside the window. In those moments of quietude, old memories and sorrows would temporarily resurface, but it was always Emma's laughter that broke the spell. And what about Luna? Emma would ask occasionally, her innocent voice threadbare with curiosity. With gentle reassurances, they told her that it was okay to remember, but she could let go. After all, Luna was just a reflection of her pain, a small reminder of the love that was lost, not one to be feared. Things change, sweetie, but love remains, Sarah would say softly, stroking her hair. You don't need to play by yourself anymore. You've got us. Through the following months, the Hargroves began to find ways to honor Joshua's memory, planting a tree in the backyard and hanging wind chimes painted in hues he had loved. Those simple acts helped as markers of love and remembrance, reminders that nothing treasured should ever fade. One blustery afternoon, Emma ran to her parents, her cheeks flushed with excitement as she clutched a bouquet of dandelions. Look what I found. Can I blow the seeds out to make wishes? Mark and Sarah exchanged knowing glances, hearts swelling as Emma giggled, twirling in the yard, Sunny chasing her cheerfully. Of course, sweetheart, Sarah replied, but remember, you can wish for anything in the world, as long as it makes you happy. With a broad smile, Emma closed her eyes, blowing the dandelion seeds into the warm breeze. They danced away, spiraling into the azure sky. Yet somewhere deep in Eldritch Hollow, the shadows continued to lie dormant, hidden in forgotten attics and long-abandoned corners. For some time, they would remain quiet, waiting for a way back into the world, a connection to anguish, loss, and heartbreak waiting for hearts that dared to resonate with their sorrow. But for the Hargrove family, each new day became a chapter of healing, filled with hope and light, a reminder etched in their hearts that love could overcome even the darkest of shadows. As Emma held her parents close and let the dandelion seeds float away, she finally understood. Love would always be tethered to their memories and the flames of their past, igniting a brighter path ahead. And as the golden sun dipped below the horizon, casting hues across Eldritch Hollow, Emma whispered a tiny wish, the culmination of years of heartache transformed into joy. Goodbye, Luna. With that wish, the shadows faded a little further away, scrambling to find another heart to haunt. For the Hargroves had found home, and in their embrace, dreams and magic could thrive once more.